and incompetence. Why do we start that? Why do we start that? Well, you listen to Forrest. You listen to LSU. They did surveys. They said the number one thing we could do to attract business to our state was to crack down on corruption. We've all heard the jokes. Now, Billy Tozan famously said our state was half underwater, half under indictment at any given moment in time. The problem was those jokes were still opportunities for our children. As long as people think who you know is more important than what you know, they don't want to invest in this state. Companies would tell us that all the time. And so we started with a special session our first 30 days, dozens of bills. Passed a bill requiring disclosure of income, assets, liabilities for elected and appointed officials. Hundreds of members resigned from boards across the state. The media asked me, was I worried? I said no. I hope more of them resign because there are thousands of Louisianians that want to serve their state. That's nothing to hide. Passed a second bill, requiring the lobbyists to disclose what they're spending in Baton Rouge. Passed a third bill. We said, if you're going to be an elected official, you can't do business with the state. Make sure you're working for us, not yourselves. Passed the fourth bill. We now are one of the only states in the country that puts our spending online, but in addition to that, we're the only state that links to performance outcome indicators. Passed another bill creating the Office of Inspector General in statute. Actually giving subpoena power to the office, also the one in Baton Rouge, also the one in New Orleans and other communities. Passed a bill closing the loopholes of the gift bans on expensive meals on sports teams. For decades, the government's had a box at Tiger Stadium. We became the first government to give it back. Now, my brother still won't talk to me. He says, y'all went too far with that. So now it's the right thing to do. You may ask, has it made a difference? Center for Public Integrity used to give us 43 out of 100 points for disclosure. Now they give us 99 out of 100 points for legislative disclosure. Better Government Association used to rank us bottom 5 on their integrity index. Now we're in the top 5. Maybe you read some of the editorials that said this may have been the most comprehensive ethics reform ever tried in the history of any state. But you know what's the most important thing? We're beginning to restore people's trust in their government. The most important thing. I'll tell you that CEO of Tidewater called me even before the session, even before that started, to say, Governor, we've been thinking about moving to Houston. We've decided to stay in Louisiana because we want to be a part of the new Louisiana. We're keeping our headquarters here. And that's what we need to continue to do to build this new Louisiana. To show our people and show this country this is a different state. I met with the CEO of a large company called Gardner Denton. They were thinking about moving their operations. They have a facility in Monroe, Louisiana. They have a much larger facility in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. They've got about 70 employees down here. They've got hundreds of employees up there. They started a project called MTS. That was the nickname of the project. It was called Monroe Sheboygan. They basically decided internally it would probably make sense to close this facility and move those employees there. By the time I met with the CEO, though, we had showed him how Louisiana was changing. They eventually decided instead to move hundreds of employees from Wisconsin here, hundreds of jobs from Wisconsin to Monroe. They said, Governor, we didn't expect to stay here or to grow here. We're going to almost quadruple our size in your state because we believe this is a new state and we want to be a part of it. But that was just the first step. The second step we took it a couple of weeks later. We came back into a second special session. Last year we cut 6 different taxes on new equipment, on utilities, on debt. Largest income tax cut in the state's history. Why was that so important? We were one of only 3 states with a tax on new equipment. Greatest gift we could give our neighboring states. Texas didn't have it. Arkansas didn't have it. Mississippi didn't have it. Companies would tell us, if it's more expensive to invest here, we're going to go there instead of coming to Louisiana. They told us our newest equipment in Louisiana is still older than our oldest equipment in other states. If it's more expensive to be here, well, we're going to go to other states. So we said we've got to encourage businesses and others to expand and invest in Louisiana. Some have asked me this year, well, Governor, why don't you raise taxes? Or why don't you slow down those tax cuts? I said, the worst thing you could do, the worst thing you could do with this national economy is take more money out of people's pockets, whether it's families, Louisiana families, or Louisiana businesses. Not only did we cut taxes last year, we've said we're not raising taxes this year. We're not slowing down those tax cuts, and we'll veto any attempt to try to do that. But we didn't do just that. Last year, we used surplus monies to do things like pay down pension debt, deferred maintenance in our colleges, made some changes in our tax laws, in our spending laws to say our vehicle taxes, our transportation taxes should go for transportation needs. For too many years, you've heard transportation secretaries tell you, well, we're going to have to raise gasoline taxes if you want to build roads. We said that's ridiculous. We already pay enough in taxes. Here's a different idea. What if we take the taxes you already pay, and why don't we spend them the way we were supposed to in the first place? Now there's a radical idea. Don't tell anybody in Washington, might catch on. As our economy grows again, we'll be able to substantially increase what we spend on roads just by using the dollars that are already being paid for transportation purposes already, instead of allowing it to disappear in the black hole of the budget. We did other things as well, but then we came back for a third session. And let me tell you, probably the single most important issue of that session was workforce development. Why is that so important? Even in this economy, we've got tens of thousands of jobs we can't fill today. And we're here to celebrate students that have completed one step in their education and are going on to the next step. And that's a fantastic thing. Let me tell you, I love when our kids go to college. Indeed, in our family, my dad was one of 9 kids. He's the only one that got past the 5th grade. Grew up in a house without electricity, without running water. I know all this because he told me this every single day of my life. To the students, I know your parents would never do that when you were growing up. But when I'd come home, I'd complain about something. I'd want an allowance. He'd tell me, I'll give you an allowance when you pay me for the food you eat. And if I ever complained, he'd tell me, son, you don't know how lucky you have it. He apparently had to walk uphill when he went to school. Walking uphill, coming back from school. They didn't have downhill. They didn't have school buses. It was amazing. It was an amazing time when my dad was growing up. But the thing my dad emphasized to us was the importance of education. He'd always tell sons, I'm not giving you a famous last name or an inheritance, but I'm going to make sure you get a great education. And so to our students that are going on and continuing their studies, I congratulate them. We fully funded TOPS. We encourage our kids. We put $100 million into our universities, into their buildings. This year we're proposing that to help get ready for our students. But we also have to admit not every student is going to start their studies in a 4-year school. Reality is every year in Louisiana, last year 13,600 students dropped out of high school. 3,000 students dropped out of middle school. On an average year, about 15,000 kids dropped out before they graduate. In an average year, we locked up 15,000 people in our prisons. That's not a coincidence. We know that students that don't finish their studies are more likely to get in trouble with the law, more likely to live in poverty, less likely to get a good paying job. Every year, we release 15,000 people from our prisons. We've got the second highest per capita incarceration rate in this country, right here in Louisiana. And yet we know 50% of the people we release, we're going to rearrest within the first 5 years out of prison. We've got to break this cycle. And education is a key part of breaking this cycle. And it starts by recognizing that the majority of jobs in this new economy are going to require training beyond high school and short of a 4-year degree. So if our kids going to college, we need to support them, encourage them. That's a great thing. There are plenty of good paying jobs for college graduates. But we also need to help more of our students go to community and technical colleges. So last year we put $8.5 million for dual training so our students can get relevant training before they leave high school. So they can continue their studies towards a technical certificate or even towards a 4-year degree. Put $10 million for high-cost, high-growth job training programs. $3 million in a rapid response plan to work with employers who need skilled workers today. We offered a first day guarantee saying our people will be ready to work on the first day, or we'll retrain them for free. Why is that so important?